There's been a settlement for some 3,000 years, and the old medieval town on the hillside is a great tourist attraction with its old painted houses, timbered buildings and quiet courtyards. Switzerland is divided into 26 cantons, areas similar to English counties, and because of the historical influence of the Romano-Saxon tongues, some cantons have more than one name. For instance, Canton Graubünden is also known as Canton Grison, Grigiuna or Grigioni. Chur, the Graubünden cantonal capital, even has two extra names, Coire and Coira. But that doesn't prevent it from being a haven of peace. Christianity came early to Chur, the 13th century cathedral being the seat of the oldest bishopric north of the Alps. Charlemagne held sway for a short time, but that was before the Bishop of Chur became the temporal ruler of the region, as well as its spiritual one. Today's governmental structure is regarded as one of the most democratic in the world, helping make Chur a modern, successful and prosperous commercial centre. The Rhaetian Railway also has its headquarters at Chur, and the station, at 584 metres above sea level in the lower part of the town, is the starting point of the Albula line. This railway was built by the canton to retain valuable transalpine trade and to contest the success of the rival Gotthard line through Lucerne. At Chur station, the standard gauge tracks of the Swiss national system changed to the meter gauge tracks of the Rhätische Bahn, this narrower width making steep mountain ascent easier. When international travellers arrive here, they must change trains to continue their journey, few realising the significance of their transfer. Originally, the trains were pulled by steam locomotives. Most have now gone. However, a few of the old engines remain, and number 1, Rhaetia, turns out in all her glory for special occasions. The old mallet locomotives are now only a memory, but two of the last series of engines, numbers 107 and 108, are still in fine form. Electricity replaced steam when coal was in short supply during the Great War. A couple of the original electric locomotives are preserved and occasionally appear. But most of the engines now operating on the Rhaetian system are the modern and powerful 600 and 700 series, which are named after local villages and towns. They're painted in cheerful red livery, which make them stand out from the Swiss countryside in both summer and winter. Five of the old electric locomotives from the 1920s are still in regular service. They're affectionately nicknamed baby crocodiles due to the distinctive shape of their articulated noses. Once a day, the crocodiles leave Chur for Somaden, hauling a mixed passenger goods train, though the first occasion passengers can board is at Thusis, further up the line. The journey from Chur begins with a swift, smooth run along the broad valley of the River Rhine, past the Kalander mountain, which gives its name to the local beer. Though if you'd been drinking too much Kalander Brau, you'd be forgiven for seeing in triplicate. The track has a third rail as far as Ems, allowing the trucks of the engineering works there access to the European system. Travellers, even the tail-wagging variety, converge on Reichenau-Tamins to be taken to various destinations. The majority of freight in Switzerland is carried by rail, the Swiss actively discouraging its transportation by road. Passengers are also encouraged to use the train through an attractive fare structure. Timber is just one item of freight the crocodile will collect here for delivery further up the line. At Reichenau-Tamins, the famous Glacier Express from St. Moritz meets up with a connection from Chur before crossing the River Rhine to continue its journey towards Disentis Muster and on to Zermatt. Having collected its logs, the crocodile departs. The Hinterrhein and the Vorderrhein meet at Reichenau, and the Croc passes almost immediately over the Hinterrhein Iron Bridge at that junction. The Glacier Express track towards Disentis curves down to the right, while our Croc takes the higher line and follows the Hinterrhein Valley. The flat plain allows the train to make good time. Clinging like stalagmites to rocky crags, old castles mark the time when Switzerland was under Austrian domination, a period in the country's history best known through the legends of William Tell. These many fortifications demonstrate how important it was to safeguard the Rhine route. The track is single line, except for passing places at stations, where the crocodile must wait for one of the Glacier Express trains to pass, though for some people, trains are not even worth a glance. On the move again. The line to Thusis was opened in July 1896, 2 years after building started. Until then, construction had been relatively simple, with the track passing over flat open plain and only the River Rhine to be bridged. However, beyond Thusis, the countryside becomes mountainous, and the builders had to choose between only two possible routes. The Via Mala, literally the bad way, is a narrow, high-sided gorge over 350 meters deep, which would have involved massive construction problems, while the alternative along the Schien Ravine was little better. It took 2 years of debate and deliberation before the Sheen Ravine route was decided upon. Thusis, where the crocodile starts life as a passenger train. Single-track operation means that coordination of trains is vital, so we can't leave Thusis until sister crocodile 412 clears the track on arrival from Somaden. The crocs are numbered 411 to 415 and were built by Brown Bovary. The influence steam locomotives had on their construction can be seen in the traditional rod drive of the wheels. After Thusis, the track crosses the Hinter Rhine River and starts to climb the Albula River valley. And as the power urges our train ever higher, we can glimpse the modern hydroelectric generating station below, which is providing our means of ascent. The valley starts to close in, and the rocky walls have to be pierced by a series of tunnels, one passing right under the ruins of the Campi Castle. At Solis, a magnificent stone viaduct was built to cross the Albula River. With the help of wooden scaffolding made from trees felled nearby, open arches were created to give strength without undue weight. The workmen certainly needed a good head for heights. This stone triumph of 1902 boasts a span of some 42 meters. Whilst the green glacial river drops slowly seaward, our crocodile climbs steadily onward. The train has been climbing since Thusis and has now gained almost 300 meters since the start of the journey in Chur. Rounding a wide curve, the train approaches the station at Tiefenkastel. The settlement grew up at this junction of the Julia and the Albula mountain passes because they were important routes connecting with Austria and Italy. But again, the railwaymen had to decide which of these two roads to follow. Both passes still carry a great deal of traffic across the mountains, although only the Julia is kept open in the winter. Travellers wishing to use the Albula route must take the train. After leaving Tiefenkastel, the valley opens out to give a panoramic view with the formidable mountains of the Albula range in the distance. Here trains can get up some speed before tackling the steep gradients ahead. Imagine a tunnel entrance 65 meters above your head in a sheer rock face. How do you bring a train 141 meters over the valley floor on a radius of over 100 meters to meet that tunnel? This was the problem facing the railway engineers in 1902. Their answer was a stone viaduct. But presented with these formidable statistics, this viaduct would be one of the most famous in Switzerland. The Landwasser viaduct is a masterpiece of engineering which says much for the skills of the workmen involved, who had no modern machinery to help them. Once again, the trees of the surrounding countryside played their part in supporting the high stonework of a building method considered to be technically progressive for the era. But if all this information isn't amazing in itself, the Landwasser viaduct was only one of 24 viaducts built on the Albula line in the year of 1902. Using steel to support the wooden scaffold, the remains of the girders are still clearly visible under the graceful arches of probably the most photographed viaduct in Switzerland, which today still looks as good as new. Our train has now reached Filisur, which is about halfway along its journey. Here the Albula line is joined by the Davos line from Langkurt. The old bells are still used to signal arrivals. Different chimes for each route, on this occasion heralding the incoming Davos train. This is a busy junction, and the signal board is constantly manned. Lying in the valley below the station, the pretty village of Filisur is proudly wearing its summer finery. After Filisur, the line starts to become much steeper, and as it curves and climbs around the village, the Albula valley starts to narrow. Greifenstein Castle, sitting on an outcrop of rock, and below it, burrowing into the mountain's very heart, 698 meters of darkness. A tunnel that shares that name. Working strenuously now, its wheels screeching because of the tightness of the curve, the crocodile momentarily leaves the sunlit slopes and disappears into a hidden helix that will elevate the train 37 meters. The Greifenstein, one of 39 tunnels on this stretch of the Rhaetian Railway, describes a full 360-degree arc over itself to deliver our crocodile and its tail back into daylight. The village of Stoels and its sister at Larch did not welcome the railway, going so far as to release 2 lakes of melted snow to start an avalanche, which blocked the way. To avoid further hostile action, the contractors drove through solid rock in record time. Leaving the original route of the track bed beside the road abandoned. Train travel can be a tiring business, with little need of an excuse to stretch the weary legs. But when a festival is found en route, what would have been a modest limb-limbering exercise turns into a delight of fun and colourful exploration. We've reached Bergun, where the locals and visitors are celebrating the centenary of the railway company, though the village, with its famous Roman tower, has been established here for a lot longer than that. Fuel for the barbecue provides a feast of fuel for the inner man, and the smell of succulent, charcoal grilled sausages proves to be a pleasure which makes more than just mouths water. The station master is obviously having as much fun as everyone else, but nonetheless, this wouldn't be Switzerland if the timetable wasn't strictly adhered to. Others also have schedules with which to comply, and though their means of transport is somewhat longer established than the railway, there is a place for both. Always an important staging post, Bergun's trade increased when the trail was widened to a road in 1865. Down in the village, symbols on a wall hint at long-gone tolls. Standing proud of the village roofs is the Roman tower, once part of a wall which stretched across the valley as an effective defense against invasion. In 1323, a great fire razed the village. The tower was all that remained, and the villagers resolutely set about rebuilding. Today, remnants from various periods of Bergun's checkered history combine to create harmony and tranquility. When the last horse-drawn coach departed draped in black on June the 30th, 1903, the villagers feared for their livelihood. July the 1st, however, saw the dawning of a new age with the arrival of the first steam-drawn train bedecked with garlands. Tourism flourished, with hotels growing in number, none more famous than the Kurhaus. Good food and comfortable accommodation, a tradition still proudly maintained, ensuring Bergun remains in the tourist brochures summer and winter. Bidding farewell to the festivities, we now look forward to an opportunity of seeing Bergun in unique fashion. As we leave, the village lies on our right, but not for too long. The ascent our crocodile now has to make becomes more serious, and to help facilitate this, 2 acutely looping tunnels have to be negotiated, swinging the line back and forth ever higher above itself. It's the emergence from these tunnels in different directions that provides the unexpected and splendid views of Bergun. But you have to know from which side of the train to look and when. The line must now climb 430 meters in 7 kilometers as the crow flies. Now the sunlit village is nestling in the valley on our left. A brief departure into the Tours River Valley allows the train another almost circular sweep to enter the Platz tunnel. The beckoning daylight has revealed that Burgund is once more on our right. To traverse the Waldtisch Viaduct means we're closing on the Muort Avalanche Gallery. 117 meters long, this construction protects the line from 3 avalanche paths by means of a series of steeply terraced dry stone walls, fences and mountain pines. However, the steepest and most dangerous path could not be adequately blocked, so the gallery was built over the track as final protection. After Muort, the railway track goes on a spree, as it takes in no less than 3 spiral tunnels and 4 Albula River crossings. Early photographs show how the railway builders denuded the countryside of its timber for construction purposes. But the deforestation didn't last long. We can see from our journey today that re-established woodland and the railway live in harmony. Should you choose to take time to commune with the landscape at closer quarters, a pleasant and interesting walk from Preda to Burgund affords a wealth of information about the building of this part of the line. The permanent way now takes us alongside a transitional one. The Albula Pass Road is snowbound in winter and regularly used by the adventurous as a toboggan run. One of the winter duties of our croc is to return intrepid tobogganers and their vehicles to Preda. Driving serpent-like through scented pines, we're about to enter the Tours spiral. But just as we do, the viaduct onto which we will emerge is clearly visible. Sunlight gives way once again to the dark creation of the railway engineers. 2 river crossings and 1 final loop remain before we move into the final section leading to the summit of the line. The danger from avalanche is as great now as it was when the railway was first built, though the need for additional defence is rare. However, when a new fall threatens, major protection is undertaken, such as this gallery, built between 1983 and 85. Entering the Zondra tunnel, it's curious to note that this curved hollow is built in part directly over the tunnel we've just been through, the Tour. Chalets in traditional style, once farmers' homes for the summer grazing at Nats, mostly accommodate holidaymakers now. Approaching Preda, the peaks of the Jumels or Twins make an impressive horizon. Once this area was a thriving boom town, reminiscent of the Klondike, with the same freewheeling attitude to law and order. This was when more than 600 people, mainly Italians, were encamped whilst building the Albula tunnel. There was a great spirit of optimism. Preda was to be the town of the future. Sadly, little remains other than the testament to their fortitude, the tunnel itself. 2,315 meters above the level of the sea, the Albula Pass can suddenly turn treacherous, and whilst winter conditions are a delight to the spirited sportsman, they can be impossible for the journeyer. The pre-railway traveller was faced with the daunting prospect of attempting the pass by coach, quite likely through a tunnel cut in the snow, but this would probably be only done in daylight after perhaps an overnight stay. Nowadays, the station at Preda can be the point at which an escape from the weather is made. It may be an escape for only a matter of minutes, but that brief time will take us through 5,685 meters and 5 years of the arduous and often dangerous work achieved by those triumphant labourers. From either end they toiled towards each other, creating such an accurate union that the track runs in a dead straight line before delivering us into the rewarding weather at Spinas. The summit of the line, hidden in the Albula tunnel, is behind us, and for the first time our croc is applying its brakes in earnest. A dual braking system is commonly used on electric trains. In addition to the friction brakes, a regenerative electrical system is employed. Simply, this means that the motors used for driving become generators, switched to impede the train's motion. As the track levels out through Beva, braking eases off, and our haul becomes an easy, straightforward run. Beva's the junction of the Albula line and the Lower Engadine line, both railways sharing the track to Samoritz. Broad and beautiful, the Engadine Valley carries our croc to its journey's end. Crocodiles don't go beyond Samaden, so we'll disembark, and whilst awaiting our connection to Samoritz, reflect on the centenary celebrations taking place. Railwaymen conduct safety checks all over the world. But here at Klosters, it's no different, except that this is the Davos line. At this time, source of jubilation for the Ratische-Bahn. Some 30 years before the Crocs were born, a Dutch entrepreneur, Willem Jan Hulsboer, keen to ease the passage of clientele from Lancourt to Davos and promote business, established the first rail link of what is now the Alpine Ratische-Bahn. In 1889, the first section to Klosters was officially opened, and in October 1989, the celebrations culminated in two special commemorative journeys. One found Crocodile 415 hauling an assortment of period coaches via the Albula line from Philisseur to Klosters to release its historically costumed customers into unexpectedly unseasonal snowfall. The other was made by the original steam locomotive which worked that first line. Brought especially from the Steam Preservation Railway at Blonay-Chamby, Lake Geneva. Ratia double-headed with 107 to keep a unique rendezvous with the Crocodile. Our connection to Samoritz will be a little while, so we'll take the opportunity to participate in the Samhain celebrations. While number one is preparing to couple up with some original coaches, we'll mingle with a large crowd of railway enthusiasts, holiday makers, well-wishers and sightseers, a great many of whom plan to take one of the special centenary steam-drawn trains down to Zernetz in the lower Engadine Valley. These memorable excursions are being hauled as well by the long-established numbers 107 and 108, who are proud to display their immaculate and distinguished strength of character before being prepared for their turn to take precedence. At Zernetz, regally attired in traditional costume to receive this living, breathing monument to nostalgia, the music and merriment continue in true Swiss style until it's time for the return journey. The cameraman was just as busy capturing that exceptional event the first time round, as a dip into the archive reveals. This is Maiden in 1903, with the crowds welcoming the arrival of the first steam locomotive, a mallet, to the opening ceremony of the station. Duties from Zernetz done, Raitia clears the track to allow her fellow engine freedom from the rolling stock and a bed for the night. But the conviviality doesn't stop here. The Maiden sheds provide a perfect protection at the end of an exhausting day, and also an opportunity for a keen photographer to catch another angle. After all, catching that special shot is what it's all about. And what could be better than a close-up of the Ratische Bahn's First Lady? But photo opportunities are not everlasting, and whilst Raitia makes for overnight cover, it's interesting to note that the legend is borne by locomotive 701 in tribute to her steadfast ancestor. Passengers wishing to journey to St. Moritz from Chur would normally travel on the speedy, comfortable and punctual Albula line expresses, hauled with almost arrogant determination by the 600 and 700 series. It would usually be unnecessary to change at St. Maiden, but that would mean missing the enjoyable idiosyncrasies of the incomparable crocodile. At last our wait is over, and having seen most of that which the St. Maiden festivities have to offer, we can embark, contented with our visit and in pleasant anticipation of a restive journey to our destination. We speed past the Bernina Valley, through which the Rhaetian Railway's Bernina line runs on its way into Italy. With just 5 kilometers dividing St. Maiden from St. Moritz, the autumn-colored Engadine Valley hastens past our window. Soon it will disappear beneath winter's blanket. With the final tunnel negotiated, our destination is all but accomplished. A destination whose name conjures images of affluence and aristocracy, romance and royalty. The station at the edge of the lake together with surrounding hotels, grand in design and magnificent in situation, could almost be palaces in themselves. Indeed, one of the grandest and most famous carries the impressive title Palace. The Badruz Palace Hotel has seen kings and princes, movie stars and millionaires, with more furs and finery the imagination can compass. So, a place of history and pleasure, a place to see and be seen, with a shopping centre that is sufficiently diverse to allow the holidaymaker or even the occasional railway traveller the ability to pick up the odd trinket. If you have the time and the money, afternoon tea at Hanselmann's is highly recommended. Or perhaps a stroll might induce the desire for a cool beer in the sun. Whatever your pleasure, there's always the sightseeing. From the unusual, like the famous Leaning Tower, to the splendor and serenity of the Samoritz Lake. Whether summer or winter, there's no finer way of getting here than by traveling the Albula line.